Becky Reid from the Riverland is now 18. Since 14, she has chosen to care for her mother, who suffers from an autoimmune disease and diabetes.
I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was worrying about financial responsibilities, I was worried about was my mum going to live, was mum going to die, I had school to worry about.
At the launch today of the report Children as Carers, it was made clear most people, especially those who run our schools, have little knowledge of how many Beckys there are or the stresses involved.
They're a hidden group of children, most of whom have no access to support and services.
Childhood Development Professor Frida Briggs surveyed all schools in the state.
Scarcely any schools at all are aware of their existence, which is a worry.
Education is an area where young people should really be recognised of their caring role, because it's their education that is affected as well if they have to take time off to care.
Becky Reid coped not only with her mother's illness but also growing up herself as a teenager, with schoolmates who didn't always understand.
Scary's the word, and lonely, very lonely.
With her mother now much better, Becky's hoping to get back into education.
I left high school at year 10, but I've now picked up and I'm studying for interior design, certificate of interior design.
And today, unlike thousands of her teenage counterparts, Becky was recognised for her role in publicising the plight of young carers. We're urged to contact the Carers Association or Centrelink for advice on support services available. Alan Atkinson, ABC News, Adelaide.
Welcome today to the Carers Association of South Australia for the release of our new report, Children as Carers. Today we have with us Helen Rayner, who's President of the Carers Association of South Australia, Becky Reid, young carer, whose photo is on the front of our report, and who today will receive a recognition award from the Carers Association for her work in raising awareness about carers. As well with us is Professor Frida Briggs. There is an extensive CV on Frida Briggs. Frida is the Older Australian of the Year, has received a number of awards, and is a prolific writer on the needs of young children and in advocating for young children. And Frida is here today to help us to release this report. The report Children as Young Carers has come about because of the need to recognise young carers in this state. You'll know that there are 13,000 young carers in this state who provide care for a member of their family. They are under 18 years of age and do care for their family members and provide care in the home at the same level as older people who are also carers, but without the recognition that they deserve, nor the supports. It is important that there is a whole-of-government approach to the recognition of young carers so that they can get the support. In this state, we have a number of services who are working within the regional areas and to provide supports to young carers. One of those programs is the Northern Carers Network, and we have Jill Short here today with us representing not only that program but the South Australian network of services for young carers. And we see it as really important that all services and the whole of government is involved in recognising young carers. So for us the first step is recognition, and this report is a modest attempt at raising recognition of the needs of young carers. If we are to help them in their caring role, then that is the first step, because they are providing the care in the home. They are unrecognised, and because they are unrecognised, services generally don't know how to treat them, and therefore they don't get the services they need. So I'm very pleased the Association has been able to make this first very modest attempt at raising awareness of young carers. I'd like to call on Professor Frida Briggs today to comment on the release of this report and the contribution it makes to raising awareness of young carers.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be invited to help you with the launch of the report, because it's important to emphasise to all family and child-related organisations, professionals, that we have 13,300 young carers in this state, some of whom are, we believe, as young as 8 years of age. They're a hidden group of children, most of whom have no access to support and services. I've conducted research in schools. We contacted every school in South Australia to find out if teachers knew and principals knew how many children they had who were young carers, and scarcely any schools at all are aware of their existence, which is a worry, because I know from working with children of disabled war veterans, particularly those with post-traumatic stress disorder, that caring can affect children's attendance at school. They're having to stay at home to look after their parents. It affects their educational progress, their social development, their emotional development. So I hope that this report will reach all services in South Australia, and hopefully that it will be read by teachers and school principals. Thank you.
So now that we have really officially released the report, and thank you, Professor Briggs, for helping us to do that, we'd like to now call on Helen Rayner and Becky Reid. Becky is a young carer. Becky is now 18 years of age, but at the age of 14 really undertook the primary responsibility of caring for her mother. They have a wonderful relationship. Becky has great pride in her caring role. She's undertaken all those things that any adult person would undertake, caring for her mother, making sure the medication is right for her mother, that the doctor's appointments are there, that her mother has attended, looking after her at night, making sure she is returned, managing all the bills for the household, and all those things that needed to be done because her mother wasn't well. I know her mother is with her today. She couldn't come today, but they have a very, very close and supportive relationship. And without her mother's support, Becky really wouldn't be here today, because she wouldn't really understand how important it is to recognise young carers. Becky has been a tireless advocate for young carers and has spoken out in a number of venues and has always touched the heart of people and helped them to really understand the needs of young carers. So with that in mind, the association really want to recognise Becky's contribution. It is our 10th year as an organisation, and we are giving out awards to those people who have really made a major contribution to raising awareness of carers. And Becky is a very, very fitting person for this award. I call on Helen Rayner, our President, to give Becky her award in recognition of her caring role. And we have it here in its frame.
Becky, it's a pleasure to present this award to you, and it's a pleasure to know that you speak for young carers, because it's something that's been hidden in the community for many, many years. I had a family or family members who cared as young children, as young as 3, for their mother who had epilepsy whenever she needed it. And I know that any awareness that we can raise, anything that Becky can say to help things for young carers, has to be an advantage. And when it comes from a young carer, then we have to take notice. So congratulations on all your work, Becky. And I know that everyone's very proud of you.
I don't really know what to say too much about the award. I'm very, very grateful for it, but as Rosie would have said, even without an award, I certainly would have spoken out anyway, because young carers definitely do deserve recognition for what they've done. I've said it probably 1,000 times before, that what young carers really want and need is one and the same thing. They want, and they need, someone to fight as hard for their lives as they've fought for the lives of those they love. If you were to stop and think for a second how you would feel as a parent if you were to go outside this place today and you would collapse on the ground. By the time you get to the hospital, the doctors tell you you've got 2 weeks to live, and your 11-year-old girl's going to have to care for you, bathe you, shower you, feed you, even wipe your bottom when you go to the toilet. And in 2 weeks, you leave her a ward of the state. Within those 2 weeks, a truant officer comes to your door and says you're a fake, you're a fraud, you're not taking care of your daughter, and I want to take your daughter away, and I want to place her, even though she's asthmatic, in the hands of a chain-smoking foster family. And the only reason you get to keep your daughter is because the doctor rings up and says, no, you can't, they need each other, and what are you doing sending her to a chain smoking foster family in the first place? Before the truant officer leaves, she reminds your daughter that she's useless and that she'll never amount to anything because she's a lazy bludger. How do you think we'd feel in that situation? Probably no better than my mum or I felt when it happened to me when I was just 11. So, well, that's just my account, but obviously, as you all know, with carers it's on a much larger scale. And that, I think, is where the report comes in to help, because for the first time there's been a major recognition of what young carers are really going through and what they do. And I think it's going to help not only to bring awareness to a lot of the service providers around, but I think to a lot of young carers out there who don't realise that they're caring. There's an amazing amount of them. A lot of them are embarrassed or ashamed to come out and say what they're doing. So I'm grateful for it. I'm very grateful to the Carers Association. It is the world's leading. The Carers Association of Australia is the world's leading carers association, and South Australia is proudly is the most efficient and productive in our nation. So I'm lucky to be living where I live. So I'm sure with the release of this report, it's definitely going to be a tremendous help to all of young carers, and I'm grateful that the Carers Association is fighting for the needs of young carers and really making this first of many major steps to come.